Welcome back to NFL Debates. I'm your host, Justin Mader. For this segment, we have Jack Kempner and Alex Lebowitz discussing the leading young running backs in the NFL. Miami's Jay Ajayi and Dallas's Ezekiel Elliott. Before we get started, I would like to point out that these two running backs are in the top 20 in every major rushing category in the league and top 10 in most of these statistical categories. Elliott and Ajayi are the top two in yards per game and 20-yard rushes. So, Alex, which of these two young running backs is the better right now?
I'm going to go with the guy who's played well from the start, and that's Ezekiel Elliott. He comes in his rookie season, and he's already the best running back in the NFL, statistically speaking. 891 yards in 8 games. And on top of that, 7 touchdowns. So he's not only elusive, he's a powerful guy. He's by far the most talented guy in the NFL, not just for young running backs, but overall. And Ajayi, he's had 3 good games. I'm going to go off the guy who's proven it all season long.
All right, and Jack?
Alex, to be fair, Ezekiel Elliott started with the first game 20 rushes for 51 yards, so not a very fast start. And yes, he's definitely put together a string of very good games, but that's behind one of the best offensive lines in football. We saw DeMarco Murray run very well against those, and he didn't have much success in Philadelphia. He's kind of finding his way with the Titans. But this is a great offensive line and a very good quarterback. So Ezekiel Elliott is just one of many pieces that the Cowboys have. Jay Ajayi is carrying this Dolphins offense, and while they're not a great team, they're still playing okay, and they're outperforming most of their expectations. And I think that's because Jay Ajayi, he's rushed for 200 yards in back-to-back games. He's one of only 4 men to ever do that. And then he had a bye week, came back and rushed for 100 yards and another touchdown. He has 5 scores and almost 600 yards in the last 3 games. And I don't think that's a small sample size. I think that shows what he can do when he's the lead running back.
And I'm not going to take that away from him. Those are 3 very good games. You have to realize it's against the Steelers, the Bills, and the Jets. Those 3 teams do not have outstanding defenses by any stretch. The Jets and the Bills have both underperformed extremely this entire season, and the Steelers are not the Steelers of the mid-2000s. They can't really stop a nosebleed. So you look at that. Those are 3 games that he's done very well, not taking that away from him, but they're against poor teams defensively. I'm going to go with the guy, you mentioned it, he had 50 yards in that first game. Since then, he's not rushed for below 80 yards. He is reliable. You know you're going to get at least 80 yards and a touchdown out of him every game. And you could argue that Dak Prescott would not be where he's at.
That he's very reliable.
Ezekiel Elliott.
Very fair that he's reliable, but like, how do you feel? Is Ajayi more reliable, or is Ezekiel Elliott more reliable for your team as a whole?
I think at this point, Ajayi is more reliable because when you look at it, Ezekiel Elliott is a guy that eats carries. He's playing for a team, the Dallas Cowboys, 7-1, almost 8-0, who always have leads, and they're constantly playing ahead. The Dolphins are playing from behind, and they're still relying on Jay Ajayi to run, and he's doing that. He's bringing them back into games, which you almost never see with the running game.
They've had some close games this season. I think that's unfair for you to say. The majority of his yards come in meaningful moments in the game, and again, Dak Prescott wouldn't be what he is if it wasn't for Ezekiel Elliott. This pass game would not be as established if it wasn't for him.
I agree. And I think that, yes, Ezekiel is a very good running back. I'm not saying he's bad. I think he should maybe be in consideration for the best running back in the league when all is said and done, just as a rookie. But you brought up earlier, I want to go back to this point, that the Bills and the Jets have terrible defenses. Yeah, they do. They have terrible pass defenses. Both of their run defenses are very, very good. It's like the Green Bay Packers, not a good team defense, but a very good run defense.
You have a guy who's coming on the scene who no one knows about. They're not going to game plan around Jay Ajayi.
They are now.
Well, they are now.
Had a full bye week after those 200
But does it matter that these teams have different styles of quarterback? We're dealing with Dak Prescott for the Cowboys, whereas we have Tannehill, who's an average quarterback, we could say, for the Dolphins. Does that have an effect on how their offenses are run, and if these two teams need to rely on their running back more than their quarterback?
I think Dak Prescott's the MVP candidate this season for a reason, an MVP candidate this season for a reason. And it's partially because of Ezekiel Elliott. They need to rely on Dak Prescott a lot, and they had this entire season. Even with that, Ezekiel Elliott has been unbelievable. So you look at Jay Ajayi, he's going to get more carries just because Ryan Tannehill is not Dak Prescott. So that might skew his statistics. Ezekiel Elliott's yards per carry number is unbelievable this season. And that's because of him. That's not because of Dak Prescott. It's not necessarily because of the offensive line. It's because he's a skilled guy.
Because Ezekiel Elliott has about 891 carries and Ajayi has less than 650, are you saying that Elliott is more reliable, or are you saying that Dak Prescott's the one carrying the team?
No, I'm saying Ezekiel Elliott is the guy who's more reliable because he's done it this entire season. He has those 600 and something yards. That's in 3 games. The majority of those yards are in 3 games.
Yeah, in 3
they're
games since he
outliers.
became the starter. Arian Foster, who was the starter on this team, he was banged up a little bit, and then finally he announced his retirement. And ever since then, Jay Ajayi has been a man possessed.
So you're going up against a backup running back as the #1 for the Dolphins. Are you game planning around Ryan Tannehill or a no-name? You're game planning around
You're
Ryan
game planning
Tannehill.
around Jay Ajayi, maybe not after the first 200 yards, but definitely after the second 200 yards, and then they went on a bye. So they came into that last game.
Well, that's about all the time we have. I think we are considering that we do have 2 really great running backs here, both 2 young guys who have good futures ahead of them. So thank you, Jack, and thank you, Alex. For our next segment, we're going to talk with Matt Zagai and Chris Serrano about officiating after an interesting Monday night. If you're watching NFL Debates, stick with us.
Tough.
Why did they?